This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
You're listening to the Pretend You're Fired Today podcast. And now, here's your host, Lisa Rangel.
Welcome and hello. Welcome to the 28th episode of the Pretend You're Fired Today podcast. I'm Lisa Rangel, host of the Pretend You're Fired Today podcast and founder of Chameleon Resumes. We are an executive resume writing, LinkedIn profile development, and job search consultancy firm that helps executives and high potential leaders land their next position faster. And on today's podcast, we're going to discuss how to effectively handle that ever popular overqualified interview question. When you're an experienced job seeker interviewing for the same level roles or even a role that might be one or two notches lower than where you're currently at, and the reasons for doing this can vary, you will inadvertently run into interviewers who will ask you that question. Don't you think you're overqualified for this job? And today we're going to show you ways to answer this question effectively so you can move on to the next phase of the interview. We don't want this question holding you back. So first thing is to realize if you have a scheduled interview, or if you have a scheduled interview and you're asked this question, the key is how the candidate reacts and answers this simple interview question can really be extremely telling of a candidate's viability for a role. So it's really important to bring your A game to this particular interview question challenge. And I know it can be perplexing that when you're on an interview or if you're even asked back for a second or third interview and you're still asked by that interviewer, aren't you overqualified for this job? It can be frustrating. I mean, can't they tell you that you're already very experienced just from looking at your resume, or didn't they know that from the first interview if they're bringing you back for a subsequent one? Why do they need to ask if your credentials are in front of them, right? So why do they keep asking you to come back? Well, here's what it tells me, okay? Here's the good news about being asked this question, all right? When you're asked this question on an interview, first, second, third, subsequent interview, they already know that you might be overqualified. But it tells me when they ask that they're interested in you. Think about it. Like I said, they already know that you're very experienced. Or to use the word of the hour, they already know that you're possibly overqualified. In most cases, they can even tell from your resume before they even bring you in, right? So, that to me is an ageism issue. If they don't bring you in at all or based on your age, that's different. But if they bring you in, there's interest. There's interest. So if you're asked this question in the process, or you're even given that as an answer, frankly, right, as a reason for being rejected for the job, you have to realize that it might be challenging to see, that they're challenging you to see if you really want the job. So as an overqualified candidate, you need to convince the hiring manager how your situation will benefit them if they hired you. It may mean if you're continually being asked this question or even possibly ultimately rejected in the past for other past interviews, you have not convinced them of this. You have not convinced them that you want this job. You're conveying subliminally, or directly that you want a job. And nobody wants to be no company wants to be wanted in that way. They want the job that they're offering to be desired. They don't want to be just conveniently looking to have an employee on because it works for them. So the hiring manager doesn't care that you're willing to take less responsibility because it works for you right now in this point in your life. Or they don't care that you're open given that the market's been challenging. Or they don't care that you think you're on sort of the downward end of your career and in a good way, and you don't want the big job anymore, and that you're open to something a little less in scope until, just because for a few more years you're going to retire. They don't care. Those types of answers do not inspire faith in the hiring manager that you're interviewing with, that you want their job. Companies like people want to be wanted for what they're offering. They don't want to just seek a convenience for you. So how you answer this question, how you handle this question, this overqualified question, determines if the company genuinely feels that you want to contribute to the company and that this isn't just a convenience marker for you or just a job placement marker until you find something else better. So it's a legitimate question, despite all of the negative hoo-ha around the question from a candidate's perspective. I'm telling you, as somebody who's hired people before, this is a genuine question. I've seen people be bored in jobs they thought they would be interested in. I've seen people be frustrated with leadership that wasn't experienced as they were. So it can be a bad match in some cases. So the key is to be prepared for this question. And here are I'm going to give you 5 different ways that you can possibly use to handle this question and answer this question confidently and effectively to communicate that you want the job that's being interviewed for. So first suggestion, you can say, I've hired many times in my career and I've seen bad overqualified people and I've seen good overqualified people. And I want to be a positive contributor. I have some great examples throughout my career that I've either hired or that I've worked alongside of as great models, and I want to emulate my behavior in the form of the good overqualified people. And then the key is to have some of those stories prepared. In my own experience, I've hired talented, overqualified people. They were great during the interview, and then like their Mr. Hyde side came out upon starting work or a few months into the job, and then they became an example of what that bad, stereotypical, overqualified person does. They were bossy to others that maybe weren't as experienced. They were undermining of management because they felt like they knew better, or they acted superior, or they took on initiatives without even communicating to their boss or other management. And don't get me wrong, initiative is good, but there needs to just be communication so there's no redundancies. Or they took duties from other people just without talking about it. So again, it led to frustration and redundancies of labor. They took credit for other people's work because they knew how to do it, so they should have done it anyway. I mean, the stories can go on, not being a team player because they felt like they were above it all. Like I personally have seen these situations happen, because I've hired overqualified people before and I've seen it work out awesomely and I've seen it crash and burn. So it's a legitimate question. So the key is to communicate that you get their concern and that you have examples to emulate and you have an aspiration to be a good contributor. So that's number 1. If you're reverting back to the field, like say you were in an executive role and now you want to revert back to the field, I suggest answering in a way such as this, like, I want the work that interests me again and keeps my hands dirty, so to speak. So you can answer in that way, because the one not so great thing about rising up through the ranks to be an executive is that you eventually get to a point where you're managing managers who manage other managers who manage other managers. And you can really get away from the hands-on operation of the sales process or the client interaction or the operations, or the client fulfillment, or just, overall field or the line, the client-facing operation, because you're up in that tower, so to speak, right? So executives can sometimes get far removed from that. So there is a desire sometimes when you get to an executive level, go, oh, this is it. And you genuinely want to get back to what you originally loved. And so the key is to communicate that you want to get back to doing what you originally loved, and that you don't want to necessarily be overseeing the people who oversee it, who oversee other people who oversee it. So communicate your excitement to get back to the hands-on work, right? And get your hands dirty again. If you show passion for the work, again, you're showing passion for the job at hand. You're not just simply saying, oh, it'll be convenient for me to take this job. So next, frankly, people hire people regardless of any level or level of qualification or of experience or whatever the case may be. People hire people that make their life easier and that make them look good, right? So I think it's sometimes okay to say, depending on how the interview goes, again, this is another option, is to say, like, if hired, I believe it's my job to make my management team that I work for look good. And you look good, I look good. And frankly, I have been that person who's been overqualified working for someone else. And I've been the person supported by somebody who's overqualified before. And just even seeing it working with clients in both of those different capacities. Having great staff work for me, I know how to conduct myself so I can be that same type of good contributor, overqualified contributor supporting somebody else. So convey that. If you have that experience where you've hired and managed overqualified people successfully and you've been possibly that overqualified person in the past, convey that experience. If you show that you understand where they're coming from and answer the question, that's like half the battle. I think senior job seekers make the mistake of assuming it's just not a problem. They should know that I would never take a job unless I'm interested. Well, yeah, we hope so, but they also have concerns as the hiring manager, and they shouldn't be dismissed just because they're younger or inexperienced, comparatively speaking. So convey that you know your job, in addition to the job at hand, is to also make their life easier and make them look good. So if you show that you're on their side, very directly even, it can put things at ease, because frankly, they're thinking it, but they don't want to say it. So if you say it, then it shows that you're on their side, that you guys are on the same side. Another option to use is, depending on the level of the position and the level of the person you're reporting to, if it's mid-level or even lower level, that manager may be concerned about you following directions. And so maybe you can just reiterate that. Based, again, on the chemistry of the course of the interview, it might be good to say something to the effect of, like, I know it's important to follow direction at times, but I also know that managers value when people can take initiative and run with it. And the key is that you communicate that you have the judgment to know both, and especially in the beginning, maybe ask more so you can start to understand what's important to them. So over time, you can run with it. And again, going back to that point I just made before, make their job easier. So if you show that you're open to that, you want their feedback, you want their approval, but you want to get to a point where you can run with it on their behalf and make their life easier, good managers are going to respect that. Obviously, insecure managers at any age are going to maybe not appreciate that, but good managers at any age are going to appreciate that. So that's the key. And then lastly, and this is, again, none of these are the magic elixir answer. You have to try some on for size, see what you're most comfortable with, and also go with the conduct of the interview and how it's going to see what might be best for you. But another option can be just simply showing or communicating the conviction that you would never take a job you weren't interested in. And if you've shown throughout the interview, if you have stories where you took things based on passion, where that making that statement has the proof behind it based on other discussion, stories you've told throughout the interview discussion, then they're going to believe you. So to just say that statement that you would never take a job that you're not interested in without any supporting evidence throughout the conversation can just sound a little flowery. So again, a lot of these statements, you need to be able to have stories behind demonstrating where you've never taken something you weren't interested in, or you've always taken things that you're interested in, or that you've worked with people who were overqualified before, either being the overqualified person supporting someone less qualified, or hiring people that were more qualified than you. So showing those stories show that you get their concerns and that you are going to positively address them. So I've had clients say to interviews, like, I don't want to be that bad hire. So I know that I'm committed to it. And it was appreciated, because that's exactly what's kind of hanging in the back of the brain and the interviewer's mind is like, is this person going to be the bad hire that is going to give me a hard time and think they know everything? And these are assumptions and stereotypes, but I'm telling you, if you know they may exist, or you see on the interview that they may exist, the key is to put them at ease and not dismiss them. Address them and don't dismiss them. So that's the key. You want to show that it will benefit you both greatly by making the hire in you. So like everything else about interviewing, it's really about being genuine and being motivated and not seeing the negative in the interviewer. Even if they stumble or ask the question the wrong way, or ask a question such as this overqualified question that may, rile you up a little bit. The key is to just see what their concern is and address it positively and with conviction. No manager can make an employee be genuine or motivate the employee to perform. You need to demonstrate that you're coming to the interview and discussing with the interviewer how you're qualified for the role, regardless of whether you're underqualified and you need to have a stretch period of getting ramped up and getting experience, or you're overqualified. The key is that you need to show how you are perfectly qualified and going to be a team player and make the boss look good. And those are the other things that just goes beyond the qualifications. Again, can they manage you? Or are you going to be somebody to get along easily with? Like, these are things that need to be addressed subliminally with this overqualified question. And bottom line is, if you don't get moved to the next step after the overqualified question, if this has happened to you repeatedly, it's not because they don't think you will be a good employee match for them, possibly. It may not be even ageism, frankly. In my opinion, it often isn't. It's that the job seeker hasn't, rightfully or wrongfully, so the perception is the job seeker hasn't conveyed the message that they want and they're passionate about that particular job, and that they're going to be easy to work with and productive to have on the team. So that's the goal, right? Or maybe somebody else did a better job of that than you. You may have done a good job, and maybe somebody else, another candidate, did a better job of that. So that's the key, is always working on not whether they're right or wrong in their assumption. It's just that you're doing the best possible job in answering the question genuinely, to show passion, to show commitment, to show good team playership, support, that sort of thing. So this will help you increase your chances to move on to the next level of interviewing. That's the key. Having this question down will dramatically increase your confidence on an interview, because you know they're going to ask the question. So be ready for it and be conversational in answering it, because again, you know they're going to ask. So then now, if you're prepared for it, you can be confident when they ask. And frankly, you can even say, I'm so glad you asked that question, because it shows that you want to help address it. You want to put them at ease. Again, it's not to say it in a condescending way, but to say it in, I genuinely understand you may have concerns, so let me help you by putting them at ease and increase your confidence in me. That's like a humble, confident approach that you want to have to answering this question. So if you found this helpful and you want some more interview prep resources, go to our interview prep sheet. You can find it at interviewprepsheet.com. You can download the interview prep sheet there. It will ensure you have all your bases covered, and this way you'll be ready to crush the interview. It's anticipating these questions you hope they don't ask, and being ready for them that are going to really increase your chances of nailing that offer. So additional interview tactics on the cheat sheet, strategies for you to nail the interview. And frankly, you can even use these tactics for performance reviews as well. So go to interviewprepsheet.com, get the prep sheet. And in past episodes, we talked about the only way to truly protect yourself from job loss is to pretend you're fired today and make a list of the activities you would do to find your next job. And then start doing those proactive activities while you're still working. This way you keep yourself in demand when you don't need a job. The key element in this Pretend You're Fired Today action list is to keep your network primed, stay active in your community, stay in the forefront of your network's mind so you can continually create demand for yourself before you need it. We want you to be in demand when you need it, so you need to create it before you need it. That's the key to this whole Pretend You're Fired Today action list. This way, if your job situation changes unexpectedly, you already have some pent-up demand for what you do. You already have people you can reach out to and say, oh my God, this is what happened to me. This is what I'm looking for now. Can you help me? Who should I talk to? It's not going to come out of the blue because you've been talking to some people here and there all the time. So do these actions that I show you here today, and you're going to be on your way to having some job search security. The security is in keeping your network primed and your documents right. So for the next few episodes going forward of the Pretend You're Fired Today podcast, we're going to continue to go through a list of tactics and activities to do now, as if you were let go today, to ensure you're always ready for whatever the world brings your way. The first item on this Pretend You're Fired Today action list was getting your resume up to speed. We cover that in episodes 1 through 8. And the second item on the list was updating your LinkedIn profile, which you can find how to do that in episodes 9 through 12. And in the last dozen or so episodes, we've discussed other job search and interview prep topics, such as how to work with recruiters or how to make job boards work for you, how to create star and car stories to boost your interview or performance review performance. So this way you can crush that discussion and get the offer or the promotion or the A-level performance review. I am so proud of you for taking these steps, making yourself marketable when you don't need it yet. Most people wait for the unexpected job change to happen, and then they take the steps to learn this information. And that's just stressful. When you need to do it, and there's timing, and you got to make sure you're working faster because you weren't expecting not to work, and now you're trying to learn all this stuff, it's just a lot of pressure. So kudos to you for learning this information and doing it before you need it. My friend saved me with her priceless advice, Pretend You're Fired Today, and then do that work of what you list when you were fired today, and I'm paying it forward with you. And I ask you to pay this sentiment forward and share this podcast with as many executives and rising professionals who you feel would benefit from this create it before you need it advice. Create the demand before you need it advice. Doing the preparation suggested in this episode will prepare you to interview confidently. In our next episode, we're going to discuss how to ace the interview when you're interviewing with an inexperienced interviewer. This is a common frustration experienced by job seekers that I hear every week. And so I'm excited to tackle this question and to tackle this situation and how to make the best of it. So you get on to the next interview, and we're going to do that in the next episode. So tune in for the next episode. Don't miss it. And until then, go to interviewprepsheet.com, download our prep sheet, be ready for the next session, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Be well.
This is the podcastfactory.com.